Schaefer versus Misa could be an argument the Sharks have all summer long. Will Scouch and Tony Ferrari join to help us sort it out.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network, we cover your team every day. If you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow along over You Get Podcast, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today, our Bald King, Tony Ferrari, and the legend himself, Will Scouch, join where we talk about Misa versus Schaefer and what the Sharks should do. We get to know the players a little bit, talk about kind of some of the concerns each player has, and then we talk about the fit and why one player makes more sense than the other. This is a beefy episode, kids, so buckle in. Before we get to all that, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And on today's show, we have two legends, and Will Scouch is here as well. Tony Ferrari and Will Scouch join. You guys know, of course, these guys are been on the show a bajillion times. We are doing one of the biggest questions that the Sharks could potentially face, as they, of course, had the best odds going into the draft lottery, and that is Misa versus Schaefer. What should the Sharks do? And we have Will Scouch, noted Misa hater.
Yep.
Tony Ferrari.
Yep.
Noted Schaefer hater. We have both of them on to discuss. So before we get into it, boys, how you guys doing?
Pretty good. Feeling the hatred. You know, it's coursing through my veins. I'm ready to just be so rude for the next 45 minutes. It's going to be awesome.
And for me, like as someone who's talked to both these guys since they were 15 years old, I'm pretty excited to just rip one apart and tear him down limb from limb. So
I thought you were talking about us, JD.
Us, yeah.
No. I'll do that. I do that privately. I don't need a camera on to do that.
Right.
Yes. Tony Ferrari pays to actually rip us down. He has he has his own Discord, or just like anti-JD and anti-Will Discord. So, so we have Tony. You of course have Misa as your number one ranked prospects right now. Scouch, you have Schaefer as the number one ranked prospect. The consensus right now is Schaefer is the number one. So Tony, noted renegade. Let's start here with Will. Give us kind of the elevator pitch on Schaefer, why you think he is the best player in this draft.
Well, I think he embodies a really, really important role that every NHL team kind of needs in terms of just being able to move the puck up the ice in a variety of different ways, doing so very comfortably, using their skating ability to their maximum advantage, being able to cover the ice, close gaps, really just sort of manage the game. That field general style of play from the back end. You know, he's a guy who also can rush the puck up the ice himself. He's a scoring threat from the blue line, not just from shooting from the blue line, but he steps up and gets his chances. In fact, an end-to-end rush that was really spectacular is what led to his injury that has left him out. But it looked really cool until it
maybe he's not that great at it.
Gosh, maybe. But I've got faith. He's got an incredibly long developmental runway. He doesn't turn 18 until September. He just brings a lot of things to the game that surround a really strong mind, especially offensively, in my opinion, that, you know, the more and more comfortable he gets, especially defensively along the boards in the defensive zone over time, I think it's only going to make him better and better and better, especially if you lean into that offensive game. So for me, it's one of those guys who plays kind of his own brand, but an offensive defenseman who I think plays the game really, really intelligently. He's not just a puck carrier, not just a passer, not just any one thing. He just combines a lot of really, really high-end traits in a really good way.
All right, Tony. Again, Misa, a guy who was given exceptional status in the OHL. like he's been a good player for a long time. So are you just banking on like the dude's good? He's been good. Michael Misa, good player, right?
Part of it is that like he's been good for very long. Like in his rookie season in the OHL, he was on pace to break John Tavares' record, or at least tie it before COVID hit. He returned the next season after the OHL shut down for a year, and he was fantastic until he got hurt. And then he got hurt early in the season, and then the rest of the season was kind of a little bit wonky last year. He put up a decent amount of points. He was solid, but he was also buried a little bit on a Memorial Cup team in Saginaw who was just loading up with guys. They brought in Owen Beck. They brought in Josh Bloom again. Like they were bringing in veterans to go for that Memorial Cup on home ice. And Misa played a bit of a smaller role on that team. This year they handed the keys to him, and he led the OHL in scoring. He was second in goal scoring, led the CHL in scoring, second in the CHL in goal scoring. This kid was absolutely phenomenal in so many ways. And you look at the stat line, and it absolutely jumps out at you at 134 points this year. And you're like, man, like that's a killer season. Like he had one of the best draft eligible seasons in OHL history. And then you watch him play and you go, wow, he does all of the little things. He really is a king of the little things. And the more and more I've watched him this season, I go, man, this kind of looks like John Tavares. If John Tavares was a very good skater, a guy that could move way better than John Tavares ever could. Coming out of junior, John Tavares was a surefire first overall pick. He was a guy that has basically lived up to the hype, and he wasn't a good skater, and he still isn't a good skater. Michael Misa brings so many of the same traits, the kind of two-way ability, the smarts, the intangibles, the little board battles. Macklin Celebrini was becomes such a big name because of that in the NHL. He wins battles all over the ice. Michael Misa does that kind of stuff. So I think with Misa, you see so many of the little details that just kind of add on to that incredible scoring line that he's at.
Okay, so with Schaefer, right? And I know there's some of the projections of like you're potentially getting a Quinn Hughes type of player, is that where you see him potentially, if everything goes right, is that where you potentially see him going, Will, as like one of those super high end, you're talking Norris type of players, or maybe just like a tier below that?
I mean, it depends on what you're looking for in terms of a Norris Trophy winning quality defenseman. A lot of the times it goes towards the defensemen who score as much as anyone else, if not more. And is Schaefer a player who's capable of that? Yeah. Like if I think he could run an NHL power play, and any defenseman that plays on the power play is obviously much more likely to produce very well. And I think the offensive ability for him, especially with the ability, like I think this is a kid who, with the right coaching, I think could be a 20 goal scorer type defenseman who brings that sort of offensive punch. Like I'm not thinking Quinn Hughes with him really at all. I'm thinking more like he's more of that Roman Josi, Brent Burns variety of defenseman where, maybe the defensive zone is not really where their specialty is, but you want one on your team. You want a guy like that running your power play. You want to give them the freedom to push things a little bit offensively, play in a responsible system that's aware of what he does when he's on the ice. And I think would work. I think his style of play would work really, really well on the right kind of team. So do I think there's like a Norris Trophy in his future? I mean, guys like Quinn Hughes are still pretty young.
Makar's
there. Like the bar, I don't see a Cale Makar level player here, but I do see definitely one of the better offensive defensemen available in the last little while. I can't remember the last time a defenseman at this age, especially this young, has come in and been this impressive, even in a small sample, when it comes to offensive zone play, juggling multiple different kinds of quarterbacking play through the neutral zone. Like there's just so many things with his game where, and I came into the season a little bit cooler on him and Misa, to be perfectly honest, but it didn't take very long for me to go, oh, okay, now I get it. Like it was a couple of games when he first came back where I kind of went, okay, I see he's coming back from mono, so let's give him a break. But then within about a week and a half, it just felt like he had found his stride. And I know it's only one game, but that one game at the World Juniors where he played 20 minutes were excellent minutes. And that team did not look the same without him. And I think that's just because of the uniqueness of his style of play. And for the type of player that I look for, I mean, yeah, I think there are gaps in his game, but I think in general, there is a quality to his game that I think could lead him to be a very, very productive defenseman in the NHL. And if that's a Norris Trophy, then so be it. I think the competition's going to be stiff for quite a while, though.
That's fair. Tony, so Misa, you project to be a center. Like, is he going to be a center? Because we know how much centers are valued, especially compared to wings. Maybe he's on the I start as a wing and eventually move to center type of path. But is that where you think Misa is going to end up?
Yeah, for me, I look at Misa and I go, that's a center long term. Maybe he does start on the wing. A lot of really good centers at the NHL level start on the wing when in their rookie year. But I also think he's a guy like Macklin Celebrini who you could ask to step in and be a center day one. He has the intelligence. He's one of the smartest players in the draft. He understands the small nuances of the game. And that's one of the biggest things for a center is just understanding like, which side should you be putting your stick on? Should you be supporting the puck high above it or below it on a given situation? Should you be kind of positioning yourself a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right? And those are the kind of things that Michael Misa understands, and he does really, really well already at the junior level. So coming into the NHL, I think he could be a center right away. Like, it wouldn't shock me in the slightest to see him be a guy that plays down the middle and provides solid minutes in the middle six as a rookie. I'm not thinking he's going to step in and be a top line center, but he's a guy that has that potential to be a legitimate top six center. And on a team like the Sharks, like I know you said we're going to get into it later when we talk about fit, but like slotting him 1-2 down the middle with Macklin Celebrini kind of solidifies the center depth for the rest of eternity, essentially, for the Sharks.
That's fair. Yes, we will talk fit and stuff here in a little bit, but yes, that is something that the Sharks will have to think about here. So, all right, before we continue, we get into some of the concerns with both Schaefer, sample size, Misa, playing style, especially with Saginaw, do just need to take a quick break. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into a gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles like EA Sports College Football 25, Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, or Avowed, which I had just finished playing, as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all with your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribe services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second gen, and then Fire TV Cube third gen. Each player does have some concerns, right? I mean, no prospect is clean, and unless you're like Sidney Crosby or Macklin Celebrini, pretty clean prospect coming out. But like no prospect is a clean, and there's always going to be questions about them. But with Schaefer, I think you have to start with the sample size. Will, like, the dude's played 19 games, if you include World Juniors. Like, he's played 19 games since the start of the 24-25 season. That's concerning, right? With such a small sample size.
It wasn't for Morgan Riley. I mean, I think that it really depends on, number one, what is it that's keeping him out? And it's a broken collarbone, which everybody breaks their collarbone at some point, right? My dad did it jumping off a picnic table thinking he was Superman. And there were no drugs involved in that, by the way. He just was a child and was being a child. So, like, and he turned out okay, but he's not a professional hockey player, unfortunately for me. But
fun fact, I've never broken a bone. So
neither have I, actually. Yeah.
Oh,
I've
so
never
not
either.
Everybody breaks their collarbone. Will argument just crumbling in front of you. Tony's so happy right now.
It's also weird that your dad was 52 when that happened.
Also a child at heart.
Will. A child, yeah. He's a child at heart. Yeah, my dad, yeah, he's still going. Anyway,
to be fair,
but I mean,
We are all children at heart. At least
It
the three
is.
of us
Well,
here.
yes. Yeah. I don't know how else to be, honestly. But yeah, so I mean, look, I'm not super concerned about the injury itself. I would have
Yeah.
been much more concerned about the mononucleosis at the beginning of the year. And within a week and a half, I was watching this kid and I'm going, okay, he may as well just never have been sick. And I get the feeling that, they're not, the fact that they haven't like rushed him back to play and they're taking his time with him and everything. And again, he's barely eligible for this year's draft. Like kids at that age are mutants when it comes to recovering from injury. And I mean, look, if you think about it biomechanically, right? Like, yeah, you broke your collarbone. Let's say that is somewhat limiting. I guess it could be a little bit limiting to your stick handling, maybe your shot quality, but bones are a much easier thing to repair than like cartilage or something. And kids have had knee injuries. Yeah, kids have had knee injuries in draft years and been perfectly fine. So it doesn't really concern me. What would concern me is if I watched some of those 19 games. I watched maybe one and I went, okay, maybe he's just taken some time to get back from being sick and blah, blah, blah. The next few, I'm going, no, this kid can really, really, really play. And I mean, I watched it. Tony, you were there with me. We watched him in the CHL Top Prospect Series against the NTDP. He was outstanding. That was around when people started going, maybe this guy's actually like the best player available out there, right? And I remember you and I both were like, I don't know about that. But it didn't take very long for me afterwards to go, okay, I watched a few more games with Erie. He broke his collarbone. So what, right? Like, I guess if anything, it means you don't shove him into the NHL literally day one unless he absolutely shows he's ready for it. But at the end of the day, yeah, it doesn't really concern me all that much. And I understand why people might be concerned, especially because it's like a surgically repaired collarbone.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Modern medical science is even in Pennsylvania is really something.
All right, with Misa, you look at the Saginaw team and watching the Saginaw team, especially after Igor Chernyshov got there. Right, it was Misa, it's Chernyshov, who should have been a top, or at least a top 20 pick last year, but forgot his sunscreen. You have Zane Perek, who's ridiculous. This team very much all gas, no breaks. We have no defense. We have to win every game 7-5. Does that worry you that like maybe he's gotten into some bad habits of having to, have to push for offense?
I get what you're saying, but with Misa specifically, it doesn't, because when everyone else was on the ice on that team, there was a lot of running gun hockey. There was a lot of just back and forth. You're in the defensive zone and you're making Hail Mary passes to the offensive zone, and you're scoring that way. And it works it worked for Saginaw. And to be honest, it's worked for Saginaw for a long time. They've played that way for a long time. That's why guys like Pavel Minchikov and Zane Perek have found success there, because they're given the green light to just go and do their thing. So I get the concern there. But with Misa, you almost watched the game turn into something different when he was on the ice, specifically this year. He was able to kind of control things, and he brings a bit more of a two-way game. And he brings a tactical game where he just always has the puck, so he doesn't have to play defense that often. But when he was forced to play defense in his own zone, he was making good reads. He was making smart plays and everything. So I think with Misa, he's a player wise beyond his years. And when you talk to him, when you watch tape, when you see him live, you notice those things. So I'm not super concerned about his defensive game. The thing that with Misa that kind of has always been like, is there more there? Can he be more explosive? Can he be more skilled? He's certainly in the upper echelon among this draft class at those things, but you almost want, like, can he get a little bit more explosive and fleeter on his feet and become a Jack Eichel? Or is he going to be limited and become John Tavares plus? And I think both those players are fantastic, and they're all-stars and guys who've been captains on teams. But only one's won a Stanley Cup and only one's led a team there. So that's kind of the concern with him. But man, like, you really have to nitpick with a guy like Misa, because there is no like obvious standout flaw with a guy like that.
All right. For Schaefer, right, you kind of mentioned how quickly he's risen up. through the like kind of the season and with the draft cycle, right? And with him, are you worried like that he's? My question is he worthy of being a number one overall pick because he's actually good enough to be a number one pick, or is he a number one pick because this draft isn't, as you said, it's fine?
It's a good question.
That's why I asked it, Will.
I do think that like it is, I would say, one of the lesser like thrilling and exciting sort of top ends of a draft class. But I do think that, like, again, if you think about, obviously the name that comes to mind for me recently, especially having seen him last week, is Zach Werenski, where it's like, is Zach Werenski a guy who's on the Wheaties box every day? Maybe this season, yes. But like during his career, he's been just a really good offensive defenseman for Columbus. Is that a player that you could see being drafted first overall in a given draft year? I mean, considering the things that he's been capable of over his career, 60, 70-point seasons, running power plays, doing all of those things and doing a really good job carrying the puck and passing it as well, then yeah, like that's a really high quality player, right? And for me, I do see, I mean, yeah, like it's a tough call because you're right. The sample size is a little bit small, but I think I always like to think back to previous draft years, right? Like relative to what I thought of Owen Power, right? Who was almost a year older at this age, at the draft age. Thinking back to like, would I take him over Rasmus Dahlin, for example?
Dahlin, yeah.
No, I wouldn't, right? But is he much further behind what Dahlin is capable of? He's a different type of player, but in terms of impact on a game, I could see Schaefer being a very, very, very impactful offensive player, just like Dahlin is. And I could see potential for him to really shore up the defensive side of the game, where if your expectation is I don't really need him to be super physical, just cover ice really well, knock down pucks, get involved along the boards, do those things, then yeah. And so, you're not getting Connor Bedard, Macklin Celebrini level player, I don't think, but he is very young. And I think that at the end of the day, there's a lot of ceiling here. Like a lot of the data that I've tracked on him is really just insanely good in a lot of different ways. And I don't know. I get the feeling that there could be a really, really impactful player here because I think of especially how smart he is, the way he sees the ice, the way he moves the puck, and it's sort of adaptable to almost anything. So it's not the most, I don't think he's like going to jump out at you as much as guys like Bedard or Celebrini or Power, maybe, but like over guys like Power or even a Lafreniere. I think back to what I think about those players and I'm going, yeah, I was probably more psyched about Schaefer than those ones. So I feel like he might be more in that like Lucas Raymond level player where you're like, I love having this guy on the team. Super, super valuable. Best in the world? Probably not. One of the best in the league. I'm not so sure about that, but definitely among the best players on any team and in the role that they're comfortable in.
All right. With Misa, right? He's done basically everything you could ask for in the OHL, right? He's won a Memorial Cup. He's led the league in scoring. Sounds like a trip to the NCAA is what's potentially next for him. I think Boston College offered him like $1 million to go play for them, which ridiculous amount of money. I don't know how anybody could pass that up. But do you think that's the best move for him for his development would be to go play college hockey?
Now, with no insight or anything on what he plans on doing, I would love to see him go play college hockey. I think he is the ideal player to go play college hockey, regardless of where he's drafted this year, whether it's first or third or fourth or fifth, whatever happens. I think going to college would be the best thing for him because it allows him to take that step up without getting force fed to the NHL, like a lot of first and second overall picks are. It's oftentimes you see so many of these guys come in and they're not always a Macklin Celebrini who's able to hit the ground running. Sometimes you see a guy like a Yuri Slavkovsky who's a first overall pick and he struggled that first year. He had a hard time. Like you look at other guys that have come in, like even a Jack Hughes, who we all look at and we go, that's one of the funnest, most exciting centers in the NHL. His first couple of years, he had a hard time adjusting to the NHL at times. So I would love to see him go to college, go to Boston College, go to Michigan, go to one of these big schools, be a prominent player on that team. Who knows? Maybe go play with your brother or something, right? Like Luke's eligible to go to college as well. get one last shot and have one last trip with your brother. Go have some fun in college. Develop, get stronger, get faster. Develop that explosiveness. Develop that extra level of skill that I was talking about, because he already has the kind of well-rounded tactical game that works at the college level. So I think it'd be a fantastic route for him to go. And then it doesn't put the pressure on him right away to be a star in the NHL, because you, especially if he goes to a team like San Jose, if he goes to a team like Chicago, you're looking for him to kind of live up to what the guys that recently came before him did.
Yes.
So give him time, give him space. And I think with the NCAA option now being there for OHL and CHL kids in general, it's going to become so much more attractive for some of these kids that are already dominant at 17, 18 years old, and going back for a 19-year-old season doesn't serve them a whole lot.
Yes. I wish Quinn Musty had that option before, because yeah. All right, before we finish up with Tony and Scouch, we talk about if how each player would fit in the Sharks organization. Misa giving the Sharks just a dominant forward group. Schaefer adding a huge piece to a back end that needs some more talent. Just need to take a quick break. The Stanley Cup playoffs are here. You've never been to a live NHL playoff game. It's unlike anything else. You remember those days, Sharks fans. The intensity, the speed, the energy in the building, it's next level. And thanks to Game Time, getting in the door is easier and more affordable than ever. Game Time is the fastest way to grab playoff tickets. Even for those must-see matchups, prices actually drop as the puck drop gets closer. And with last-minute deals, you can save up to 60%. I've used Game Time to get tickets to the Barracuda, to the Sharks, you name it. I've used Game Time to get tickets. And the great thing with Game Time ticket coverage, I know I'm protected, whether it's cancellation protection, job loss assurance, or either a 24-hour return guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, let's talk kind of about the fits and how these two players would each kind of fit with the Sharks if the Sharks were to draft them. So we'll continue with Schaefer. We know, right, the Sharks last year, they drafted Sam Dickinson, 11 overall. Dickinson had himself a pretty fine season in the OHL, was named the Sharks Prospect of the Year. I know, Scouch, you have some questions about him. I do think Tony is a little higher on Dickinson between the two.
Maybe. I think in general, publicly, we were around the more skeptical on him. But okay. I think this year has been nice.
It's been nice. So, which is, fair. Like, Dickinson's not a finished product and stuff, but getting Schaefer, and then if that kind of moves Dickinson down to as your second piece, like your kind of your second guy or whatever, however you want to tier him, but that's a really solid defense, and you've gone from having a terrible defensive pipeline to a really awesome defensive pipeline, right, Will? If you go this route with Schaefer,
yeah.
Done.
Yes.
So thanks. This because I was rude to you, wasn't it?
No, it's mostly because I'm distracted because Tony used the word funner.
Yeah, I did. As soon as I said it too,
so that's what threw me off.
Someone's gonna say something
now
about
I'm keeping
it.
it short. I can't not, right? I'm
okay.
obliged. But anyway, I
want my camera cut out.
Oh, okay. He felt bad. But yes, it would be a huge ad. And I think I said this when I was on the show the other day, right? It alleviates things from Dickinson, right? He's not the guy anymore. He's one of the guys. And you look at, I'm looking at the defense pairings for the San Jose Sharks right now.
Oh,
there are jobs. Right?
Plenty of jobs open, baby.
You need more than one to play in the NHL, and it would be helpful to have more than one that is good and more than one that can play some offensive hockey as well. And so for me, I just go, look, full disclosure, both players I think make a lot of sense for this team. Both teams, no matter which one, as long as San Jose doesn't drop out of the top two, and they get a choice at one of these guys, maybe they'll get a choice at one. I don't know, no matter what. But there's a job for either of them. But I look at what they've got on the back end, and I look at what they have in Dickinson, who, again, I don't dislike Sam Dickinson, but I do feel like he's not perfect, right? He scored a bunch of points this year, but there's other factors, right? And Schaefer is somewhat similar in terms of the strengths and issues, but I think you look at them and go, look, if Dickinson ends up your top pair guy and Schaefer's on your second pair and they're both playing 20 minutes a night or whatever, who gives a crap? Like, okay. You know, I think people get really caught up with like, well, we have this guy for the first pair. Like, what about this guy? Where's he going to play? Like, that's what a coach is for, right? Who cares if you're winning, right? And I feel like you have a much easier time winning with more good defensemen. Not saying that Misa's not a good fit, but you know,
and you can.
I don't know.
There's 60 minutes to a hockey game. Last time I checked, if you can have them both out, like stagger them, so one of them is out there a majority of the time, like that seems pretty smart, right? I don't good defenseman on the ice at all times.
Like I don't think that if you draft a Schaefer, or if let's say you skip over a Schaefer, like I don't think you're going to find a Matthew Schaefer in Luca Caglioni or Eric Polkamp or Nate Miskey or Shakir Mukamadula. Like I don't think that, like, you're kind of hoping that Sam Dickinson, unless you acquire somebody, is going to be your number one guy. Right. Unless, and I don't know how you find a number one guy. And I don't think there's anybody on the team right now who fits that bill when the team is a playoff team. Right. So is Schaefer that? I don't know. But having two potential options is better than hoping that the one is there. Right. Whereas up front, you've already got Celebrini, you've got Musty, you've got Will Smith, you've got William Eklund, you've got more on the way. Chernyshov, Kasper Halttunen can score goals, right? Not saying that these guys replace Michael Misa, but by committee, you've got a lot already going for you on the team and a lot already going for you in the system. So for me, yeah, I mean, I think Schaefer makes a lot of sense, and he's from Hamilton, Ontario, and that's right down the road from me, and that's automatically the winner.
2 points there for Will. Okay, so I mean, you kind of brought it up, but right, the Sharks have invested a lot into their forward group, right? You have Michael Celebrini, who's pretty good. Will Smith, who I think there's still questions on if he's going to be a center long term, but second half of the season really came on. Was almost at a point per game pace for a while there. Getting Misa, does that, like, it just kind of the same thing? It gives you insurance if you don't feel like Will Smith's going to be a long-term center. Maybe you can go get and especially maybe a defenseman who's younger, but maybe more eligible to kind of go be able to contribute now. Is that maybe the route you go with if you're Mike Greer, Tony, of just being like, we have all these forwards, we'll figure out some veteran defensemen and just let all these young kids go play?
It's an interesting thing because, like Will said, I think realistically, if I'm not being biased or anything, either of these players would be awesome fits for the Sharks. Yes. I think either one would
it's
work
it's
really
a great
well.
problem to have if you're Mike Greer. Is like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I get to have John Tavares 2.0, like a faster John Tavares, or like a really sick defenseman on a pipeline where I don't have a lot of really sick defensemen.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like you have to almost look at this and go, do I want to have the assurance of a number 1-2 with Celebrini, Misa, and then you don't have to worry about whether Will Smith's the center or not. It kind of makes him the William Nylander. Like, no, he's not a center. Like, we're done with that conversation now.
If one of those guys gets hurt, guess what? You could just slide Will Smith into play center.
And he's a really sick winger. Like, his skill set works so well on the wing. But then, like you said, like, they've loaded up front. Now you have a bunch of prospects that really work up front together. You have Chernyshov, who's got this already great chemistry with Misa. So if they're on the second line together, that works. You don't have to worry about whether a guy like Philip Bystedt is going to be a second line center. He can be a bottom six guy and be really good at that. You can worry about whether Musty's going to play on the wing with Chernyshov and Misa, or whether he's going to play on the wing with Celebrini and Will Smith. So you have a lot of options, and you become this offensive powerhouse with all of these forwards that are so well rounded and bring such a variety of skill sets that you become a team that can present multiple looks to teams and really start to challenge other teams. Schaefer does make a lot of sense on the back end because you are thinner back there, but there is only 6 positions to fill. You can find another guy, and maybe Dickinson does take the step and becomes good enough to be the guy back there, and then you can pair him with a Shakir Mukhamadullin or a Luca Cagnoni or some of these other guys, but there's still chances for the Sharks to get defensemen. There's still chances for them to get centers, but my curiosity is, how frightening would it be for them to have 2 guys who could legitimately be number 1 centers down the middle? It's what the Pittsburgh Penguins won a couple cups on. It's what Detroit's won cups on. It's kind of what wins every team cup. So that strength down the middle is tantalizing, to say the least.
All right, get out of here on this kind of one just thought experiment, right? And it's always, especially when you're this high, right? It's always best player available. But you do have to always kind of look at like, okay, if I can't fill this need, whether it's a center or a defenseman, how easy is it for me to get maybe 90% or 80% or find somebody else in the draft this year? And so I'll kind of open this up to both of you guys here is, okay, so if they say they do get Schaefer, right? Number 1, how can they find, because again, it doesn't need to be a first line center with Celebrini. Can you find a second line center in this draft that you feel solid about? Or if you draft Misa, can you find a defenseman who can potentially at least be comparable to Dickinson or maybe be a running partner for Dickinson? So, Will, I'll let you start. Yeah.
I think it is in this year's draft, if you want to be specific, way easier to find a solid center option than a defenseman. Like, okay. I mean, look, especially because San Jose right now, you're looking at maybe a late 20s, early 30s draft pick and an early 30s draft pick of some kind.
Yep.
So teams are going to clamor for defensemen anyway. That just happens every single year, right? So if you get a defenseman at 1, like Schaefer, you've added a really, really good offensive guy to have on the roster who will probably be there for a very long time and play lots and lots of minutes. So if a lot of defensemen go between 1 and let's say 29, I get the feeling that at 29 this year, judging by this year's draft class, you're going to have a choice between a lot of really interesting options up the middle. The names that come to mind immediately, guys like an Eric Nilsson might be there at that range, who I think has a really huge amount of potential. And you give him some time to develop. Cole McKinney could be a really interesting option to play up the middle down there. Who else? I mean, maybe a guy like Roger McQueen slips all the way to the end of the first round. And
he's too big. Somebody, Boston's going to love him. He's too big.
maybe. But, I mean, the chatter's not amazing. And, you know, if he's a flyer for a team, then who knows? Braden Coots might be a guy at 29 where I go, I could see that guy being a really fun Shark, and I think fans would really like him. Whereas I'm looking at defensemen, and I'm going, I don't know. I feel like someone's going to take Radim Mertka before then. Logan Hensler will be probably gone. Blake Fiddler probably will also be gone. And then at that point, you're looking at, like, Cameron Reed, who is kind of like Schaefer, but like scaled down about like a 6 out of 10. And maybe Sasha Boumedienne, who is really hard to project. And I don't really know what he is at the NHL level. Beyond that, I really struggle to look at defensemen in that range where I'm going, I'm going to jump at this guy. Centers this year is the draft of guys that might end up third line centers in the NHL. Like, it's just chock full of them. So yeah, I get the feeling that if you're San Jose later on, you could probably snag yourself a good center.
Now, on the flip side of that, I don't really have an argument against it.
Yes!
I mean, this draft for defensemen really is Schaefer and then you have guys like Jackson Smith, Radim Mertka. I love Blake Fiddler. I think he's the epitome of defensive defenseman. And but I think all those guys are gone. And even those guys, like, I'm not getting Blake Fiddler and going, oh, it's okay.
Done,
I missed out on Schaefer. right?
Yeah.
Like it is. I'm so glad I didn't have Schaefer because I got Blake Fiddler.
Yes.
So it really is tough because that defensive group after that becomes a bit of an issue. Like that's why I think part of the reason you're seeing Keyshawn Aitchison fly up the draft board and get ranked 10 on Central Scouting or whatever it was, or get ranked inside the top 10 on certain lists, because this draft really is starved for defensemen after Schaefer. And I think you're going to see a bit of a run in that end of the top 10 into the early teens, because there isn't another guy really. Like I think if you look at 15 lists and you ask who the second best defenseman is, you're going to get like 8 answers, 6 answers. Like there's a bunch of guys that people really love. So it's an interesting year. And yeah, like, no, you're not going to get Celebrini Misa if you draft Schaefer number 1. But you could get, like Will said, Celebrini, Eric Nielsen, Celebrini, Roger McQueen, maybe a guy like Cole McKinney, who we mentioned. Like even like, there's a bunch of guys in that range that you're kind of happy with, even if you don't go center and you kind of go, well, Will Smith is going to play center next year, so maybe a guy like Bill Zonin goes on his wing down the road and he kind of fills in the gaps where Will Smith is lacking. So I think realistically, if you're looking at it from that perspective of who can we get after player X, you're probably better off getting Schaefer because he is more of a unicorn in this draft, even if he's not necessarily that Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar kind of guy.
That's very fair. I mean, yeah, the scarcity of it of resources, right? I think that it does make Schaefer, I think, a little bit more intriguing, and especially with the way the Sharks have kind of loaded up front as of late. I think, again, we don't know where we're going to be, but I think it would be really, really hard for Mike Grier, if given the option between the two. I think it'd be really hard for Mike Grier to pass up Schaefer, just because, again, I do think the Sharks need defense. Schaefer's could be like the best guy, and like you guys said, there's just not another guy where you feel like, can I get 80% Schaefer out of this draft? So
it's also very important to remember that Michael Misa was -10 in the playoffs this year in 4 games, and that
he had no leg. Leave him
automatically
alone.
That automatically means
-10 plus minus.
He was out there putting his heart and soul on the line while injured.
The Memorial Cup defending champions.
Hey, to be fair,
your Otters.
You know what? Zepp Lindgren's better than Matthew Schaefer. I said it.
Hey.
Wow, that's a joke that like 3 people get, and one of them is here, and you're one of the other ones.
Yeah, I know. It's
wins over my head.
I was gonna say, it was really for me.
Yeah,
I was gonna say Schaefer hasn't given up a goal during the playoffs.
That's true.
Yep.
Yep.
He also hasn't scored one. Bum. Points.
That's fair. That's part of my defense is for nerds. Go score points. Okay. Will, Tony, thank you guys so much. Where can the people find you guys? Of course, you guys are be doing streams and stuff all throughout the draft. I know you guys have big stuff planned for the draft as well. So, but yes, where can the people find you?
On the internet.
Good.
Yeah, like the internet is great. I guess I'll plug Will's YouTube channel because he's not going to. Go watch the Game Tape with Tony videos on the Scouch YouTube channel.
Yep. Just those. Nothing
just
else.
those. Yeah, do not watch a stream unless my face is there.
Yeah.
And only the parts when Tony's on it. Like then you
I agree.
Cover your eyes.
Fast forward the Will parts. Definitely don't watch the OHL draft stuff he just did with that Jordan guy.
I'm way too close to becoming a full-time gaming streamer on my own, playing Nubby's Number Factory for 7 hours a day. So look forward to that on the Scouch.
You have the cat channel. You need to get the cat ears headphones if you're going to do
That's
that.
That's true. I do actually. Yeah.
The day Will goes, ooh woo, I'm done. I'm done with all of it.
Tony, I'll do that any day you want me to. I'm good. I'm
backing it up. I'm having both of my cams fail me.
The next stream, Will's going to have the cat ears. I'm very excited for it.
We'll go for a drink first, and then
yeah. Good
all right, boys. We'll all chat again soon here at some point. Thank you guys so much for your time. Appreciate you guys.
Anytime.
No problem.
All right, I do want to thank Tony and Will for jumping on here, kind of talking about how both these players would fit. This isn't going to be the first time or the last time that we talk about Schaefer and Misa and their fits, and kind of discussing where they, if the Sharks get that option with number one, how they would fit in the organization. So thank you. Make sure you guys are, if you're listening to Locked On Sharks, you've probably checked out their work before. Both guys are absolutely great. So we'll be back on Monday as we start to kind of debrief from the season. We'll start to, kind of start that process. So make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Until Monday, bye, friends.